everybody. This is Cindy Held with KEXAC. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Awesome. I saw that somebody was having some audio trouble, and I just wanted to say that in the Zoom window on the bottom left, if you click the arrow by the speaker, it gives you different options to click your speakers and your microphone. It might be that you have the wrong microphone or speaker chosen there if depending on how you're hooked up. So maybe try that. But I am the host of this meeting, and this is the first breakout session or concurrent session, and it's from 10:45 to 11:45. And it is the Title I Part D Subpart 1 overview, updates and transition ideas. And our host is Lacheena Carothers, and Monica Shack from KDE is here as well to answer questions. So I will go ahead and let them take over. And if there's anything you all need, we do have the chat box down there that you can ask questions or let me know if you're having issues. And I will be muting everybody except for Lacheena, just because when we get feedback. Also, I would just like to say, if you're having issues with things being slow, maybe try turning off your video and it might help a little. So just a little troubleshooting, and I will let you continue, Lacheena.
Okay, well, before I share my screen, because I don't remember that if you share your screen and you're talking, if you can still see me yet. I think so, because the other presenters did. You can see me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hello to everybody. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say on the top right corner of the Zoom window, you have different views you can choose from. So if you pick speaker view, then you'll always see Lacheena talking as she's sharing her screen.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
I am going to share my screen. I think. Okay. And all right. So welcome to the Title I Part D Subpart 1 session here at the KAES Summit. I'm so excited to see everybody here and ready to just what we call professionally develop, to engage with one another, to get some reminders, and more than anything, truthfully, to get a refresher for why we do what we do with the population of students that we do it with, and what that means to the students and to our professional life. So my name is Lacheena Carothers, and today we're going to, this is the session objectives. We are simply going to review Title I Part D and do a little overview and talk about the purpose behind it. We'll discuss a little bit about child count survey, the identifying the educational needs of your facility, also developing and completing your Title I Part D application, program plan with accuracy and support, and also the performance report completion. And lastly, we're going to spend a little time talking about how to effectively use the Title I Part D transition funds. We'll share some, I'll give you guys an opportunity at the end to share some ideas, some successes, some attempts, because attempts are good too, because sometimes we just need to attempt it again. So we're going to end our time talking a little bit about that. And also, I would like to hear from you guys. And during that time, also I'll be listening to you talk, but I also will be taking a few notes so that we can share that across our DJJ programs. All right, so just a little bit, I would like to introduce myself. So some of you on here know me, of course, Lacheena Carothers, as a KDE alternative consultant. Just recently, let's see, that was March. Yes, March of this year, right before all the COVID pandemic happenings for us, I accepted a position with DJJ to work as their Title I coordinator or administrator. So with that, I just wanted to kind of reiterate to others who may know me or others who may not, whether you received an email from me yet or maybe not, that I come in, I'm sorry, I'm sharing screen, yes. I come in as an alternative educator. I've been involved in alternative education since I was 22 years old. I won't tell you how long ago that was, but it's been a minute. And I've enjoyed every step of the way. I started my career in Indianapolis, Indiana. I went to Indiana University where I earned my rights to become a teacher. But my very first job as a teacher was in an alternative program called New Beginnings in downtown Indianapolis. I had a little bit of an emotional attachment to that job simply because I myself bring along with me as an alternative educator some past trauma connected to the murder of my brother. When I was about 22, 23 years old, my brother was murdered in street gun gang violence. And as that happened, right before all that was occurring, my mother and I were desperately taking my brother from program to program to program to school in Indianapolis, trying to find some group of individuals that would help my brother, because I knew very well that the key to him receiving the inspiration he needed to get connected to something different was to be educated. And with that, one of the last places that my mother and I was able to take him to was that building, New Beginnings. And I just remember the joys of it, but I also remember the pains of it. The joys of it was my brother was very interested in receiving help. But at the same time, the program was very limited to what they were able to do in order to help him. So that program, he attended, he came and went to class and he tried that. And basically the resources and staffing that they had at the time just did not work for him at all. Unfortunately, not more than a few months later, he was killed. And so therefore, as a sister and an educator, from the bottom of my heart, when I walked into that building, because I had received an interview opportunity, I knew that I was destined to work with students, a part of that program. I had no idea what alternative education was, but I did have a heart to want to see people who felt a little hopeless about their connections. I wanted to be a part of the connection. And so I accepted the job. Of course, it was amazing. And from that point forward, didn't have a clue that not only would I be working with students and helping them accomplish their high school diploma, I would also develop the programs to help improve what we were doing. And then I went on to create several other programs in the city of Indianapolis. Eventually, I decided I was moving back home. So in moving back home, I applied for a job at the Martin Luther King Academy in Lexington, in Frankfort County. And I received a position there where I was the English teacher for, it was freshmen through seniors, and also had a reading lab. So I did that for about 3 years. And at that point, I did lead teaching. A few years later, I got back involved with Job Corps, which of course I ended up right back with the kids that I have a passion for. I was their intro instructor and loved doing that. And of course, eventually I came to KDE, and that's where I served as an alternative consultant for the past 3.5 years. And now I am at DJJ because I still have passion. I want to stay connected as much as possible, but I want to be more connected to the transition end of how to support students who have needs, that these alternatives. I love what the guest speaker said, that these are options. That's what we used to call our programs, options in education. So we're providing options. And with that comes funding. So these students, and this is my intro to what we're doing right now. We want to keep in mind these students generate these funds because they need them. So then here we are as alternative educators with our programs, and we are ready to provide that. So this overview, please see that as an opportunity just to be refreshed to why we sign the papers, send in the reports, connect with the administrator to know what we're doing, following the deadlines. We're doing all that because the end goal is truly to serve the students that are in our care during the time, okay? So that's why I do what I do. All right, so moving on, what are the Title I Part D goals? So as I go through these goals, I just want us, again, to remember this is about, yes, the end result. the students getting what they need while they're with us, and hopefully in transition, a little strengthening bridge through us. Number one, we want to improve educational services for children. We also want to provide neglected and delinquent youth a successful transition from institutionalization to further school or employment. I like that goal so much because sometimes we're just pushing kids toward higher education, and that's great for a lot of people, but for some, they just want to know that they can provide for themselves and possibly a family that they already have or that they feel that they have to support. So I love that education and employment link. So the next goal is to prevent youth from dropping out of school. So we know very well, we're going to have less dropout experiences when we provide great educational services and connect youth to real life successes, jobs, connections, how to do things to improve the outcomes that they also dream about, but just maybe haven't had the platform or the environment to talk about the dream. So the last goal is to provide youth who have dropped out and youth returning from correctional facilities with a system to ensure their education. All right, so in doing that, the ways that we receive our funding and how we get connected, we do what we call an annual child count. You know, guys, bear with me because although I'm passionate about it, I'm still very new to some of the language, but I understand the purpose for which it exists. Monica, please feel free to chime in if there are places that need to be addressed a little further as well. And if there's any questions coming in, I can't see them. I'm sorry.
So I don't mind to chime in, and Lacheena, and I definitely will.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Monica Shack over there. So, I'm sorry. Okay. The annual child is an annual survey that collects an estimate of the number of students who are eligible for Title I Part D funds in each state. Eligibility for counting and eligibility for serving are different. So, Monica, would you talk a little bit about the difference between those two? Do you mind?
Okay, so the eligibility for counting and the eligibility for serving are totally different. For state agency children can serve all the way up to age 21. Now you have to have adequate enrollment documentation. A lot of times that is used through Infinite Campus records to show that the students are eligible to receive Title I Part D services. And so if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I can address to make sure that students are eligible to receive Title I Part D funds, but students are eligible all the way up to age 21 if you receive funding under a Title I Part D Subpart 1 program.
Thank you, Monica.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then also to a state agency is eligible for assistance under this subpart if such state agency is responsible for providing free public education for children and youth who are in institutions for neglected or delinquent children and youth, who are attending a community day treatment program, or in an adult correctional institution. Right. So the child count window. So what we do is we select a date, okay, and that comes from my end here. And then that one day during the calendar year, we also let the institutions know what that same date is, and then they give a number back that lets us know how to calculate up what that child count will be for that following funding year.
Yes, and so normally that funding year, that one day count is normally between November or December. Lacheena, as the state agency director, is responsible for selecting the highest enrollment date for each eligible DJJ institution. So that's the one day that Lacheena will select in order to use the highest eligible enrollment funding for that one day count. So that's why it is imperative that each DJJ institution submit and let Lacheena know their highest enrollment date in order to receive Title I Part D funding for the child count.
So we're going to talk about, just briefly, what is a regular program of instruction? So an educational program, not beyond grade 12, is an institution or a community day treatment program who are for the neglected and delinquent that consists of classroom instruction in basic school subjects such as reading, mathematics, vocationally oriented subjects, and that is supported by non-federal funds. All right. So talking about who we serve and what are the guidelines and parameters of that. Students are eligible to be served who are in a program for youth who are neglected or delinquent. We just mentioned a few of those there, including the juvenile detention, correctional facilities, and community day treatment. Aged 21 or younger, or enrolled in a regular program of instruction. The next piece here, just as a refresher of what Title I Part D is all about, we have to collect what they call a performance report. So this data is reviewed during monitoring visits to help determine if growth is occurring within the education program. That data-based decision-making can only occur when the data, excuse me, are of high quality and reliable. So basically, this data collected, we want to make sure that the data collected is based on the decisions that were made as the GMAP applications are turned in, the goals that are set, the needs assessment that is looked at, in order to ensure that education is moving forward and also what we call continuously improving for the outcomes of the students. This data that's collected in the performance report helps us be able to calculate and to make decisions on further funding. Monica, did you?
Yes, and so also the performance report is a collection of the overall academic outcomes for the previous year. That is also including as far as demographic data, vocational data, special education data, reading and math data. So it's a collection of all a variety of different data sources that is included in the performance report. This information is also submitted to the U.S. Department of Education annually. And we also look at, and again, as you can see on the screen, and so it's student and facility counts, it's demographic data, as well as academic and vocational outcomes and performance in reading math data. And it's always a collection of data from June 30th through July 1st. And again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Lacheena and I, and we will be available to answer any questions that you have. And we know particularly this year, due to COVID-19, that a lot of collection of the data will be limited just because we ran into an area where there was a lot of uncertainty. So we know that the collection of the performance report data might be limited this year, and we know that is fine. But if you have any questions or concerns, please make sure to reach out to me, and I will make sure to try my best to address your particular questions.
And to conclude talking about the performance report, thank you, Monica. I noticed that, this data, you're collecting it and it's a part of the requirements for Title I, Part D money, but also too, administrators and teachers can use this data as well. So to review and improve the quality of the data itself, sometimes you don't know how to use the data for your particular program and how you are designing, even looking at, conducting needs assessments and program evaluations until you see the results. So collecting it for our purposes can also strengthen that program's reach as well. So just a little reminder about allowable and not allowable expenses when it comes to Title I Part D funding. Allowable items as listed here, you got tutoring, liaison coordinator salary, classroom assistant salary, supplemental classroom supplies and technology, supplemental professional development. And then that just means that it's professional development that the district is not already paying for that staff. Counseling, mentoring services, dropout prevention, vocational, technical, and life skills education. I would also add that this also includes any social emotional learning tools that are allowable, because right now we really want to emphasize that type of support more than ever for our students, and also it benefits the staff working with those students. Simple things that are not allowable, just to keep in mind, the items that will be used by students that are not considered neglected, delinquent, or at risk. Anything that would not be directly related to transition or education. And if you have any questions regarding those allowable expenses, please reach out to me as well, or Monica at KDE. All right, so I talked up a lot in the beginning about addressing transition, just talking about, I really think this is a place here, and I purposely wanted time for us to be able to dive into this dialogue. I'm not sure, Cynthia, is there a way that we can unmute participants, or they can unmute themselves if they want to share? Because I really, during this next 15 to 20 minutes, would like for, after I talk about a few things here, I would like for others to be able to chime in and share some of their ideas, their successes, or even some of their challenges, or maybe some barriers that they feel that they face when it comes to transition.
Yeah, people can unmute themselves, or you can type over there in the group chat if you need to.
Okay, thank you. So some examples of how to support services to ensure that students have successful transitions. Personal, vocational, technical, and academic counseling. That looks a variety of ways depending on the facility that you are connected with and your local community, or the communities that the individuals are transitioning into or back to. Placement services designed to place the youth in a university, college, or junior college program. Over the last couple of years, there's been several organizations that have, I would say, come about, have been given birth to, simply to be a conduit for these students' transitions into universities and colleges. So we can talk later about, collecting some of those organizational names and contacts. If you have those, let's share them, please. Information concerning and assistance in obtaining available student financial aid. I don't know, most of us as alternative educators, just educators and counselors in general, we have a lot, there's a lot of students, kind of contacting some of us, after or before they're leaving our care, that really don't have basic understanding of how to connect with financial aid, for not just for college, but even for other programs and assistance and training programs. So we want to share those processes. If any of you have one that you use that you would like to share, we would love to hear about it, so that others can tap into you as a resource to be able to do the same for their facilities. Job placement. We're going to talk a little bit about, in just a little bit here, I wanted to share some of the passionate pleas that we've had from certain companies in Kentucky that really need different skill sets coming out for students, but I'll share that in just a few minutes. Student transition folder with existing information, transcript, career scope, individual state testing results, etc. And of course, that's for students who are transitioning typically into back into your traditional school settings or another alternative program. It's very helpful if you have a process that is more effective, that you use, that's even in addition to Infinite Campus or outside of that. Would love, again, to hear you share, individuals share those experiences and processes that you use. Guest speakers can also be used to introduce students to possible career paths. Just like the guest speaker here today told us, clearly, you just never know which person will have the greatest effect on that individual. So open up to the variety of ideas. One of the things I used to tell a lot of the alternative programs when I would visit them for a variety of reasons, I would tell them to make sure that you don't exclude yourself, even though you would not be paid to do it, but include yourself as a guest speaker for career day or for conversations about, college experience, how to get into college. All of us have went through those experiences, and some of us had no clue what we were doing either if it wasn't for knowing how to reach out to the admissions office and different things like that. Include yourself in those conversations. Be the guest speaker on your process of becoming a teacher. Share with your students how You didn't become a teacher just because that was your direct path. Share with them about the job you had at Lowe's. Share with them about working at Hardee's. Can you tell I worked at Hardee's? Yes, I worked at Hardee's and McDonald's because I love to be around people and talk. Can you tell? So I love sharing with you that, you know, hey, when I worked at McDonald's, they took me off the drive-through window because I talked too much. You can't talk like this and work at McDonald's at the drive-through window. It doesn't work at the front counter either, guys. But make sure you don't exclude yourself in those career path conversations. That your other staff, I don't care what position it is. The purpose in mind is that the student gets exposed. I love this idea. Even in correctional facilities and day treatments, counselors, therapists, police officers, let them talk about the career aspect of what they do. You just never know who has got that dream, you know, to become that thing. And of course, I talked to a lot of alternative school students over the years and work with them. And one of the things I get a chance to hear so much about is kids start talking about how, you know, my mom gets arrested a lot, or my dad or my grandfather, you know, this person's drunk or this person's high. And then I'll say stuff like, and I met the counselor and I'm curious, how do they know what to tell this person? Or, you know what, when I talked to the police officer, I had a couple questions for them. And they are very curious, even though those things are traumatic that's occurring in their life. We have students who are literally ready to learn more about even what's happening to them that's not so favorable. One of the greatest things I can say you can teach a student is you can inform them about trauma, inform them about careers, but what better thing to do than to actually engage them in the conversation that could possibly lead them on the path to choosing that for themselves. So again, with transition, let's share. Let's talk about being out of the box. And what I mean by that, I stole that from one of my colleagues. So they were talking about being out of the box. I said, this is good because typically sometimes we get a little stale in our efforts and our goals and how we're going to use this funding, and our needs assessment says a whole lot of things. We need a lot of things, you know, but what can we do with transition? What can we do? How can we develop something, connect with, conversate about to create something that's more beneficial, that's a little out of the box? Maybe it's not something that we are used to doing. Good. Because what we're used to doing, sometimes it's just not working anymore. Or right now during this COVID pandemic, this is pushing us, I would say forcing us to be not just more creative, but be creative at all. I believe this. I don't know about you personally or professionally, but this COVID pandemic has made me look at every aspect of my professional life, my personal life, my family life, everything in a different way. And I've been able to come up with ideas that I just would not have created if I hadn't have been under the pressure. Since I'm under the pressure, let me let it work for me. So it's same for your programs. What can you do as you come together as a staff? What out of the box ideas? I have here, try it again with a smiley face, because there's some things that you've tried before that didn't succeed. You know, you tried it, you reached out to that organization, that local company, that local business, and you said, man, this would be great if we could just, there's a program in Anderson County. It's Apex. It's a learning center, it's an alternative education facility. And they were sharing a story with me last fall about the Lee's Chicken across the street from them. And we were going through all the skill sets that are required to work in the variety of positions at Lee's Chicken, and how some years back, someone on staff there connected with Lee's Chicken, connected with the person that ran the food place, and they sat down, they came up with an idea, how to develop skills. I mean, when I say try it again, I mean, maybe there was a company that you reached out to, maybe there was an organization that you reached out to previously that now could be more open, a little more invested, you know, really wanting to partner with you for a smoother transition for some of your students. So I mentioned here local business connections. Monica, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, and so looking in the chat box, we have several responses that are coming in, Lacheena. And so Amanda Henry has mentioned college tours. She adapts a lot of college tours. And then Cynthia has also mentioned that the KHEAA is a great resource for higher education using their bus, to come. It also is allowed to come to your program and make sure that you have procedures available. And so Cynthia mentioned that great resource.
Excellent. Excellent. And I'm hoping others are writing down those ideas as well. I know Monica and I have discussed, really collecting more information from you guys upcoming so that we can be out of the box on our end too, or how we can support some of your transition ideas so that we can strengthen these and get some greater outcomes. And we know very well, the stronger and the more innovative we are about connecting our students to organizations, opportunities, education, work beyond our walls, the more successful we will be with them in the future. And just so much, not seeing them so much come back to us left and right, in and out, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about this construction company, please. I know. Go ahead.
Before we move on, Shauna would like to share something, if she can just unmute her microphone.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Hi. Can you guys hear me? I'm way out in the country. Okay, good. I recently became involved with the nonprofit Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and I'm sure you ladies have heard of them. If not, please check them out. But I always thought that would be a good organization to get my students involved in once they leave the alternative school, because a lot of these kids don't have like homes, and Kentuckians for the Commonwealth has kind of become like a home away from home for me. So I thought that would be good if we could get that nonprofit or open or introduce kids to that nonprofit to kind of give them like a home base and a solid ground, especially since it's all over the state of Kentucky. But that's one of my
Shauna, would you mind, my contact information at the end of this, could you mind emailing me? I think I lost her. Okay. Do you mind emailing me at the end? And yes, so that we can connect and have that conversation. I would really like to hear more about it and get that direct information. Thank you. Anybody else want to click in and share before I continue? Because I'm gonna keep talking. It's hard for me to check the chat and talk, I'm sorry.
And so I'll help you monitor the chat box.
Thank you.
Wilson, she also mentioned that they have the waste management resource available. And she said that this company has allowed students to make recycled material, and they provide a lot of free examples of products to help with transition.
And is that in the chat box as well?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll keep them coming. While we're at a little bit of pause, I'm going to share what I have on here next about a construction company plea. I am in the process of connecting with the construction organization here in Kentucky, because when I attended the CTE conference last summer, my session either got canceled or somebody didn't show up. So I had a free space. So I went over to where the counselors were meeting. And in that space, these construction company owners were talking. And when I tell you guys, they were pleading with the school's counselors to please put up next to their college poster for students. They were pleading, could you put construction work next to that? Because their concern was, and these were the owners of these companies here in Kentucky. They said, we don't have entry-level basic construction workers. The pay is great. They were even willing to start partnerships and mentorships to help students transition into the workforce. They were saying that, I asked a couple of questions. I said, are you guys willing to work with the school districts on coming up with a list of skills or what things to look for in a student? Who may have that natural knack to work with their hands in that way, like to build things, like to, take things apart, put them back together, see how they work, or just are physically agile. Some people just really have it in them where they like to be physically doing something, and they make great entry-level construction workers. And eventually, like we talked about, some start at one point and end up owning their own company. The young man, he started out going to college and he just did horrible in college. He was like, I went from school doing horrible to went to college doing horrible. He said, but I built decks on the weekend. He said, I was building decks making $2,000 every day. And I was making all this money. And I was like, well, why am I racking up all this money at college when I'm making all this money building decks? He started his own company. He started building houses. I mean, now he owns a very successful construction company. And he was one of the people, he shared his story, who owns these companies. So I'm in the process of working with CTE Connections to get me connected to the construction organization to talk about that as well. I thought you would like that one too, Monica. Give us an opportunity to start thinking out of the box a little bit, and how with America's infrastructure conversations, I mean, this could be a great time to have those licenses and technical trainings and certificates brought into some of our programs as well.
Okay, and so thank you so much, Lacheena. We also have several new responses coming in the chat box as well. So April has mentioned that they have a partnership with KCTCS, and it is more of a technological program, and they also help students to work on their dual credit program. And so that's where they have that partnership as far as helping with transition. Let me keep reading. There's also a great program in Louisville where one of the residents, within a week long, they can pass drug screening, and they're able to show up to work every day. And so I hate to put Dr., and I might not be pronouncing his name correctly, if he could just talk more about the information that they have available in Louisville, if you can unmute yourself, because I would love to hear specifically about that program.
Hi, this is Dr. Garland. I work with Side by Side Studio in Louisville, and as long as one of our residents has an OSHA 10 card, can pass a drug screen, and will actually show up and work every day, Side by Side can place them in a job within a week. And they do construction jobs. She will also place them in working jobs. She has an art studio where if they like working with kids, they can come in and do art projects after school with younger kids. But primarily right now, because with all the construction conversations, they are begging for anyone who can work and will work. There are so many construction projects going on, they can't fill the need because they don't have enough labor.
Okay, so yes, and I appreciate you truly sharing that opportunity and sharing your insights. I think that is a great opportunity for the students. It really is. Thank you so much, Dr. Garland. And we also have another comment that came into the chat box. Donna mentioned that she also takes her students to the local technical college, and they also give great resources and they provide great tours. And I hate to put Amanda Henry on the spot, but if you can talk about your comment in the chat box and unmute yourself, that would be great.
Hi, Amtech is works like with electricity construction. They're based in Lexington, and Mr. Donahue, I'm drawing a blank on his first name right now, but he came to our facility in Moorhead and did a presentation with the kids and everything. And he has a truck that he brings with him, has all different kinds of gadgets and stuff on there to kind of show how electricity works, and they kind of get to go through it and play with it, and there's danger and what not to do, and he does a very good tour. But he also has gotten involved with our kids. I think there's been a couple, and I'm not sure which facility that they went from, but with the apprenticeship program, C-Tech, where the kids can do copper fiber, there's home entertainment and a couple other ones. He will work with them once they get out, as long as they're of age and meet the requirements. But he's willing to work with our kids that have a troubled past and have struggled to get back on their feet and don't necessarily have an aftercare plan.
All right, thank you so much. And also, Dr. Garland has also mentioned that they have a partnership with a lot of unions and labor representatives to come and do presentations throughout their facilities throughout a couple of times a year. So that's a great partnership that they have embedded at their particular facility. Also, Howard mentioned, Lacheena, if we can work together to compile a list of these specific transitions. Once this presentation is over, he would like to have that compiled list. And so Lacheena and I will definitely work together to compile a list of these transitions and share this information with our DJJ coordinators. So thank you so much. We will have that available.
Monica, you're muted.
Thank you, Lacheena. I think that's all the comments that we have, particularly right now. So I'm going to pass it back over to you, Lacheena.
Well, thank you. And if they keep coming, we'll just keep sharing, okay? I just want to make sure that I mention, in the beginning of all this, we want to start with a needs assessment, focus on the needs. Some of them are obvious and other needs are not so obvious, but when you conduct a good, thorough needs assessment, you see some things that you just wouldn't have seen if you didn't collect the data. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned the details of that. And so many of you have already been very much, successful and are the experts at conducting these. And I just wanted to make sure that we keep in mind with the COVID pandemic, let's let it work for the good of all of us, our programs, this funding, and our students overall. Let's make sure that we are squeezing at the last drop of the lemon. Make sure that if there's something that's directly connected to the COVID pandemic affecting how we use these funds, just for instance, I've had several revisions to GMAP applications recently because some line items were not able to be put into place, although money was designated for it. So then they had to, of course, they moved over to something that right now was actually another need that was already presented, but with the COVID pandemic, it made it more obvious that the money needed to be used in a different way. Just keep in mind that you can have a single focus. You could have a single focus. Sometimes a single focus brings about greater results, and also having a single focus can also help you holistically see where your program is going. With that, I would like to mention the power of mission. Every program should have its own, every district you're a part of has a vision, and that's great. But the alternative programs within the district that serve the students in our populations should also have their own mission statements. And what I mean by that is, what are the things that you are using with the students while they're with you to bring about academic success and transitional improvement, that's specific to your program? Let me give an example. There are programs that have a very strong social emotional learning component. When I visit them, I can tell that it's not in their mission statement, but it should be, because as a staff, they do very successful and effective work with helping students strengthen their social and emotional connections and learning opportunities by using things, for example, like Why Try, using other programs that are available to us through a variety of free resources. So we also have now, some alternative programs within our DJJ programs as well, that their staff really has a strength in trauma-informed care learning environment. Within your staff, there should be a small mission statement on how we arrive students at the goal, at the big vision of the district we serve. I'm gonna say that one more time because I know how important this is. Because if you don't understand a little bit about what your mission is, even though you're part of a bigger picture, your staff that you hire, those that stay on, it gets frustrating when you don't know how you're getting where you're going. But if you have a couple of vehicles, I give the example of going to Disneyland. You know, I asked my daughter, you know, okay, we have a big vision. We're going there. We got a picture. But how are we going to get there? The mission, how are we going to get them there? Well, we're going to get there by purchasing plane tickets, because I'm not driving. We're going to get these plane tickets. That's going to be our mission, is we're going to purchase tickets and we're going to fly there. So with a program, you know the big picture, to get them to graduation, to get them to successfully transition to a higher education opportunities. But how are you getting them there? Is it through social emotional learning? Is it through credit recovery? We have some alternative programs that are very, very effective, because they do not offer anything but credit recovery, because they serve only students who are so far behind in credits. They do that well, but that's their mission. I use that as an example. A lot of our DJJ programs, of course, we have several components, but what does your staff specialize in? Where do you see your greatest outcomes? And then that's how you know what your mission is. If anyone is interested in developing a mission statement for your alternative program inside these programs, if you're interested, please email me and I can forward you a PowerPoint on how to develop a mission statement for your program. It's very interactive, kind of fun to do with your staff, and it also really does help you see who you need to hire and the benefits for them being a part of your team. Okay. Of course, they're completed by defining the purpose and scope, their needs assessments, establishing a planning team, identifying desired data, availability, usability, and collection methods, analyzing data and identifying needs and setting priorities. And basically, again, when a program is clearer on what do we do here to arrive at what we have to arrive at for students. When that staff is more clear on that, when that staff is more clear on the plane ticket versus the bus, then you're able to work on building that piece and focus in, and you could designate your Title I money, as long as it's allowable, to supporting that mission, to getting those outcomes. Okay. These are just a list of resources that are used throughout this PowerPoint. Instructions on, like, for instance, the GMAP instructions for those who may be new to putting in your application, which is currently right now everybody's working on the new one in GMAP. You got your statute here, also the administration planning toolkit, and most of these things came from the KDE website, because we're partners with them, and we work with them, so they work with us, so we kind of just flow it all together. I wanted to make sure you guys had access to those tools. For any questions, comments, concerns, or support, contact me. My name is Lacheena Carothers again, and I am excited to be in this role to serve you guys as you come up with ideas and receive monies to support those ideas. Again, let me check the chat box. Let's see if I do this.
So currently, Lacheena, we do not have any additional comments, but the chat box is open if anyone has any additional questions.
And it would be very helpful. I know, Monica, we mentioned putting this stuff together and making sure we can disseminate this information.
Yes.
For those who shared, I'm not sure, Cynthia, are we able to get a copy of the chat conversation? Is that downloadable?
Yes, I can download it for you, and I'll do that.
Could you please send that to Monica and myself?
Sure can.
That would be great. And then we can send that out. Monica, we can put that together. Is that okay?
Yes, that will be fine. All right. So currently in the chat, we just have people saying thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Well, I do want to say we really do want to work together and discover how it is we can support on the financial side these out-of-the-box allowable activities for our students, for our programs with transition. Please look for those emails coming from Monica and or myself, where we're just wanting to know how we can better help those ideas. So I say thank you as well. And Monica, thank you so much for being here with me and supporting me in this new role and being there for all of us so that we can have clear boundaries on what we can do with these monies to support these students.
Oh, you're welcome, Lacheena. And if any one of you have any particular questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. You can always make sure to email me, call me, or even if we need to do a video chat, I'm always available. So thank you guys again.
And Cynthia, thank you for what is that they call that, moderating us here.
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and thank you for listening. I look forward to working with you all.
Okay, before I end the meeting, thank you again, Lacheena and Monica. I just wanted to remind you all that coming up next, we have our lunch break until 12:30. So you have till 12:30 for our next concurrent sessions, and those will be from 12:30 to 1:30. So I will go ahead and download this chat for you all, and you all can get it out, and we will see you all later.
Thank you all. You guys stay safe and have a wonderful start of the school year.